Otherwise known as ESG, who are legally been. So thanks so much for coming out tonight. We know that this will be an informative meeting for you. Thanks again.
Just get a mic in the middle. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to hear about an important part of the college process, which is the financial aid opportunities that are out there to help pay for college. So my name is Michael Turner. I work for the state of New York. The agency that I represent is up there at the top. It's New York State Higher Education Services Corporation, or HESC for short. Most families really aren't familiar with who we are until this point when your child is in high school, they get close to college age, and you're thinking about how to pay for college, and learn about New York's financial aid programs, and our agency who administers a number of different grant scholarship programs to help families pay for college. So my agency, we run a program called TAP, the Tuition Assistance Program, which is a handout at the back about. And then we also now most recently have a new program called the Excelsior Scholarship, which enables families to get free tuition at our public colleges here in New York State. So I'm going to talk about those programs that we do in New York, but I also am going to be your guide through the greater world of financial aid, explaining how it works with federal programs, how colleges can offer aid to students, and then a little bit about how to find private scholarship opportunities. So I know that there's different, families here of underclass students. We might have some seniors, but mostly juniors, sophomore, maybe some freshman parents. It's never too early to hear about this process, especially for the junior families where this is coming up right next school year. So when we're talking about aid programs, we're trying to find money to help pay for college. Now, when we are offering aid to families, there's two different categories of financial aid programs that we offer. On the one hand, we have what's called need-based financial aid, which is any financial aid program that in order to qualify for it, we're going to be looking at the family's finances. So anything that's need-based is basically based on your finances, and there's certain limitations. So when we talk about the Excelsior Scholarship that has a $125,000 income limit on it, that's an example of a need-based program. But we also have what's called merit-based financial aid opportunities, where income is not a part of the process. In order to qualify, they're looking at other factors. What can those factors be? Well, it could be the student's grades, test scores, so obviously academics play an important role as to whether or not the student can get scholarships. It might be their ranking in their senior or junior class. In New York State, we actually offer both types of financial aid programs. We have programs that are based on income, but we also have a variety of scholarships that are based on merit, that look at grades or ranking and test scores and a number of different variables. It's not only just academic. Students may have other talents as well. They may be a gifted student athlete, they may get an athletic scholarship in their college. They might have talents in the arts, or they might audition for their college and get a scholarship based on a level of artistic talent or ability that they might demonstrate. There are also contests where you can simply enter and win scholarship money to help pay for school. So one example I always give families is, really easy, fun contest that students can enter into. Most recently, we heard about the winners of this scholarship contest that Google offers, called the Google for Google Scholarship Competition, which is basically, it's open right now for next school year. So students who are trying to get scholarships for next school year can draw the Google logo based on the theme that they give, and they actually take submissions from K to 12. So, recently the winner who was highlighted was a second grader who drew this Google portrait of dinosaurs. She won a $30,000 college scholarship from Google, second grade. So, there are plenty of programs available no matter what year you are in high school. We want to get opportunities. It's not all based on tax returns and having to meet certain income guidelines. There are a lot of different programs available. Now, when you're applying for aid, when I say financial aid, some folks think I'm talking about, free money, about the grants and scholarships that are out there. Yes, financial aid can offer you the opportunity to get free money for college in the form of grant scholarships. Some people think financial aid means loans, but loans are also a part of financial aid program that you can get. It really depends on whether there's a need for them. So these are typically the different types of financial aid programs you may be awarded. And of course, we want grants and scholarships, but if those programs are not enough, the college financial aid office may offer the student a work study opportunity, which is basically an employment program. They say, look, work for us, we'll give you money like a part-time job, and you can use that money to help pay your way through college. There are also loan programs that you borrow from the federal government, where the student can borrow money, or the parent can borrow money, and they pay it back either during or after college, of course, plus interest. Now, loans are the very last thing that we offer students. We first want to see what types of grants or scholarships they can get. We then offer the work program, and then if they need a student loan, we then offer them student loans first, and if their loans are not enough, we then offer the parent the opportunity. Loans are completely optional, though. You don't have to take them if they're not needed. It really depends on where you go to school. Some of our students, if you're looking at CUNY schools, for example, at CUNY, they like to brag about 80% or more of their students graduate debt-free. So at CUNY schools like CSI, very few students are actually borrowing loans to go to CSI. But if you talk about state schools like SUNY Albany or SUNY Buffalo, well, there might be more students who borrow loans, especially to pay housing costs. So at CUNY, students are usually commuting, but at SUNY, students will usually living on campus, and they may need a loan to help close the gap or to help pay that bill. So you'll see when colleges award aid that they'll include all those different offers depending on what there's a need for. You want to make sure that when you're applying for aid that you cover all your bases with all the different sources that are out there. So if you're looking for grants and scholarship opportunities, well, the federal government has grant programs that they offer. They also offer student loans and work programs. You also have your state resources. Through my agency, Higher Ed, we have Excelsior, we have TAP, we have all of scholarships that we do in New York. So you can get money from both federal and state programs. But the state programs are only available to students who want to stay in New York State for their college. So if you want to go to college here in Staten Island, you can get New York State aid for that. If you want to go upstate New York, you want to go to Buffalo, Rochester, you can get New York State aid for that. If you want to go to Pennsylvania for college, cross New York off the list. New York isn't going to provide any support for students who are going out of state for college. Our goal is to help at New York schools for New York families. Now, you could get support from the college. The college is the third resource on here. Any school, they offer financial aid, but it's going to be different at different schools. Some schools do a better job at aiding families with their own money. Other schools do less of a good job. They might do a poor job at offering aid to families. It's really going to be the work of the family to find out what kind of institutional financial aid is available at that college, especially if you're thinking about going out of state or going to a private school where you have a higher price at college. And then lastly, I mentioned the Google Scholarship. There's tons of private money that is out there from these big corporations or even some small scholarship and charity programs that offer money to families, unions, if you're a municipal worker, there's unions that you might have an affiliation with that might be a program that's available. We want to make sure that we're looking at all these private opportunities in addition to our state and federal money and where it's offered by the college. Now, because there are all those different sources of money, there's different apps to complete. So a common mistake that families make is you hear all this stuff about FAFSA, right? You have to do FAFSA, you have to do FAFSA. Well, FAFSA is very, very important. We're going to talk about FAFSA. But FAFSA is only your federal application for financial aid. If you just do a FAFSA, it doesn't allow you, it's not the application for New York State aid. New York State actually has separate applications. So if you're that's just a FAFSA application, we're going to talk about the link that brings you over from your federal to New York State to do the separate state application for our TAP program or any of our other special programs. So we have that separate application. The college may also want a different application outside of the FAFSA or outside of what the state has asked you to file. Some private schools, for example, they ask for a form called CSS profile. So they can do their own evaluation of your finances and determine what of their money they can give you based on their own assessment. And then there may be other applications out there for scholarships, right? Google's gonna, you can't Google for Google through FAFSA. You have to do Google's application. There's an application they can print for you to join. You write a little paragraph about the drawing. They have their own application process. Your library is touch. It might have its own application process, own requirements. So you want to make sure that you're looking at all those other opportunities. And then there may be special programs available to families. Like if you have a student with disabilities in New York State, we have great programs through our Access VR, which is a state program which provides funding for higher education for our students with disabilities here in New York State that has its own separate application process. But the FAFSA, which is the federal form, is usually where most families start this process. And FAFSA itself stands for the free application for federal student aid, so it's free on the paperwork. And the time that you typically start applying for FAFSA is beginning October 1st of the senior year of the student. So if you're a junior parent, we're talking about this coming October 2019 is going to be when you can start filing for FAFSA. You're a sophomore or freshman parent, well, it's going to be whatever, October, whatever your child's senior year is that you start doing this. Now, while it opens up on October 1st, the deadlines to submit it are set by each individual college's financial aid office. So each school has their own in-house financial aid deadline, and you should be aware of that. So some schools may want it really early in the fall. Some schools may give you through the winter months to apply for aid. Typically, by March 1st of senior year, you should be done filing for financial aid. That typically covers most schools' deadlines is, the beginning or middle of March. So you do have some time to do the FAFSA, but you don't want to be late to any schools that may have had a February deadline or anything like that. So we always say check your filing deadlines with your college to make sure you know when you need to submit your FAFSA filing. And when you file FAFSA, we really prefer that you do it electronically. Doing it electronically means that you go on a computer, or nowadays you can actually get an app on your phone if you use an iPhone or an Android device, where you can file FAFSA electronically for free, no charges. But doing it online means that we can actually get you a response within 3 days. It's a really quick turnaround. It's sent to your colleges within 3 days, and it can be corrected online. So if you made a mistake, it's really easy after it processes for you to open it back up and make any changes. You can file FAFSA on paper, but you have to mail it in. It takes So, and then you have to wait for them to then allow it to be corrected online if you want to make any changes. So it really is an easier process to manage if you file it online. Either you're going to your computer, the website is FAFSA.gov, or using, like I said, your mobile device and downloading this free app called My Student Aid, where you can file FAFSA when it's your time to do so. Now, within the FAFSA website on FAFSA.gov, a lot of parents always tell me things like, oh, I don't think I qualify, or what's the point of doing this thing? I always tell families, look, no one's up here except for myself probably as a financial aid professional and can really tell you whether or not you qualify or not. But if you're really curious to find out if you do qualify for federal aid, you can actually just get an estimate or quote from them by going to the FAFSA.gov webpage. You scroll down the page, you'll see this little picture here that says early aid estimate. You can get what they call it the FAFSA forecast. Basically, it doesn't take your name or identity, but they ask you the income questions, the same things we're about to talk about now that goes into the FAFSA. And you can sort of get a quote, a preview of what your aid eligibility might be through FAFSA. You get a very important number from them that's called the expected family contribution. So the whole point of filing FAFSA is for FAFSA to make a determination of how much can a family afford to pay for college, and is there a need for assistance from your school. FAFSA makes that determination, and they call it the expected family contribution. So that's an important number you may want to get an estimate of if you're wondering whether you qualify or not. And you can actually do that right now on the FAFSA.gov website by scrolling down behind this early aid estimate of the FAFSA forecasting. Now, when you do the forecast, or if you do the real FAFSA, you're going to see the different types of questions that they ask. Some of the questions on FAFSA are really easy. Sometimes families have a lot of anxiety about how to file for FAFSA, thinking it's a very difficult form. For the most part, a lot of the questions are very basic, and you can see some of the questions that students are going to be answering here. Their address, what high school do they go to? They're going to ask them what colleges are they applying to. So very easy questions. They do also ask students about their income and assets. Sometimes we have students that they work. If your child works, whether full-time, part-time, maybe they work during the summers, it's important that you keep records of their income. A lot of times when I'm working with high school seniors, I say, look, did you have a job last year? Did you work last summer? Yeah, I did work last summer. Do you know how much you made? No. Do you have the statement for your job showing what your income was? No, I lost it. So they're going to ask for income about students the same way they're going to ask for income about parents. So the senior families, they just use the 2017 taxes because that's their most recent taxes this past fall. For the junior parents, it's going to be the 2018 tax returns, the ones that they're about to do, that are going to be used this coming fall for you to apply for aid. So all the income questions they're going to ask you and your child, did you work in 2018? Do you have income to report for 2018? So just check with your student if they worked last year. Did they have a job? Did they have income? Will they get a W-2 this January? You should save that, and it's going to be important for you to use that when you file for aid. The other part of the FAFSA has to do with parents. They're going to ask parents questions about your marital status, names, dates of birth. They're going to ask about your household status, so basically how big is your family, how many kids will you be sending to college. They're going to ask for your income and income tax return information and assets, if you have any. So these parents, your information is very, very critical because this is really what determines if the student qualifies or not. So, you know, most students don't have any income of their own to report, but parents, your salary, your wages, your tax information is going to be what carries the day as to whether or not the student qualifies for a program like Excelsior. So it's important that you work with your child to complete this application. Sometimes I see parents, they just give their kids their taxes. They're like, all right, just take the taxes, go ahead and figure it out. Your kid probably doesn't even know what a tax return is, that's what adjusted gross income is, or tax liability. But you're saying, here, take all this complicated tax information and go figure out the financial aid thing. Not a good foot to start off if you're doing this financial aid process. So I typically tell parents and students we're going to work together. Not tell the parent do everything for your child, but we're saying at least work together. That way, it's a good learning experience for your child to see what taxes are and see how this thing works, and then know how to do this. Because when you file for FAFSA, it's not a one-time thing. You actually have to renew this application every year while you're in college. So the first time you work on this during senior year, it's not going to be the last time. You're going to make sure that you want to have a good handle on this because in the fall of your kid's freshman year in college, you're going to be renewing for their sophomore year. The fall of every year, both you and student. Now, commonly we get questions about how to file for aid depending on different situations with families. One of the biggest questions that we get usually has to do with marital status. Like, how do we approach this application if I'm a single parent or so these are kind of the situations that we have. A custodial parent of a student is required to file financial aid for that child. You don't want to look at the which parent does the student live with? We live with most of the last years. And the students in the you say it's the parent that you live with the most. So if that's the mom, then the FAFSA form is only going to ask for questions about mom. It's not going to ask for any questions about dad if you determine that dad is the non-custodial parent. Now, there will be questions if if you're a single parent, you get child support, that'll be on there. But they don't need to know the non-custodial parent's name or social, you don't need their taxes. And it doesn't matter who claims the student on taxes. We sometimes get this question like, oh, me and my ex-wife were divorced. The kids live with me, but my ex-wife claims some of my kids, including the kid that's going to college, so don't they need to use my ex-wife's taxes to file for financial aid? And the answer is no. If you're the custodial parent, you're the one that lives primarily with the children, we need more information, whether they're on your taxes or not, whether you work or not, information on before. When I started in financial aid, I used to think marital status is a pretty straightforward thing, right? You're married, you're not married, you're single parent, whatever it might be. And then you get all these stories from people like, yeah, I'm still married, I live with him, but we don't talk. We don't sleep in the same bedroom, we don't get along, we do our taxes separate, we keep separate bank accounts. So when we file for financial aid, can I put it on a single parent? And we say, no, you're a two-parent household, whether you get along with your husband or wife or not, whether you look at each other in the eyes or not. If you live in the same house, you file for this together because they want to know both of your incomes as you're both still present in the household. Remarried parents, sometimes people say, well, look, I am divorced, from the child's father, I'm remarried, I have a new spouse. Do I need to include the step-parents' information in my child's college applications? And the answer is yes, you're remarried. As a married person, we expect that or not, what their income information is. So I'm married, my wife is always quick to remind me that what I own is hers. So I would think that most married folks would do the same thing. If you're remarried, you marry somebody, their income and everything, their resources are a shared resource. So we do collect the information about step parents, even if they're not the biological child, your child's biological parent. The other question that we get, aside from marital status, income is pretty straightforward. We really don't get that many questions about income, but we do get questions about assets. A lot of people start worrying when they hear that there's potential for the FAFSA to ask you about things like bank accounts. So these are the different types of asset questions that you could potentially answer on FAFSA. And there's some things that they look at, and there's some things that they don't factor in. So sometimes I hear folks saying, well, if you own a house, you're screwed, you're not going to get financial aid. And that's false. If you own a house that's your primary residence, they're not going to ask you to report the value of your home on your financial aid form. The colleges don't expect you to sell or leverage your equity in your home to pay for school. But if you own more than one home, then yes, your secondary property, your vacation home, in addition to your home, could be leveraged as part of your assets as something that can pay for college. So primary home, no, you don't have to report that, but any other real estate assets could be subject to evaluation on form. Retirement funds. Some people say, oh, if you have a lot of money stashed away for retirement, you're not going to get any financial aid. That's also false. The financial aid form does not collect any retirement money as long as it's in the proper account. So if you have it in IRAs or tax-deferred accounts like 401ks, those things are excluded. Life insurance, annuities, excluded. They don't want to know about what those things are worth. So for when they talk about investments, they're you have any, CDs, you have a mutual fund, money market account. And when they're asking about bank accounts, they want to know, well, what is your current value of your cash savings and checking account balances? So yes, anything that you do have in cash or savings or in a checking account could be subject to evaluation as part of your fund. Now remember, income, they're always looking at what you made last year, but for these things, they're looking at what you have at the moment when you file. So when I filed for financial aid in October, how much do I have in my savings account on that day? Here's the tip, never file for financial aid on payday. Obviously, your cash and savings account, checking account balance is going to be higher. It's always good to file for FAFSA maybe a couple days before you get paid. After you pay mortgage, you pay rent, pay some bills. That's how my wife goes shopping. Let's go to Costco, let's go to BJ, Target, wherever. Let's just stock up for next winter and spend some money. And now we say what our bank account balances are. Students do have to report their money as well. Some families may have started like these junior savings accounts for their kids. We call them custodial bank accounts. So when they ask a student, do you have cash savings checking account balances? Sometimes students will have to say yes if they do have these types of accounts that parents may have set up for them. That would be evaluated as well. Businesses, sometimes I hear people say, oh, if you own a business, you're screwed for financial aid. Well, before we say whether or not you're going to be affected, do you have more than 100 employees that work for you? If you are a small business owner, and they define small business as having 100 or less employees, your business value is exempt from the FAFSA application. We don't want to know about it. We get to put a big fat zero for that question about business values or business assets. So it's excluded. So for many small business owners, that protection extends to you other than what income you make from your business, which is going to be on your personal income taxes. You won't need your business taxes when it comes time to do financial aid. So some things they look at, some things are excluded. We just want families to be careful because every year we get a call. Why did I qualify for aid? And sometimes we help families look at their form and see that you reported your 401k as an investment. And then we have to get documentation that you did that by accident. We have to see that it's your 401k. We have to remove it. We can all this red tape. So we just want you to avoid any of these errors when you're filing for aid to make sure that you report what's necessary and exclude things that are not. Now, shifting gears from FAFSA, I mentioned in the beginning, New York State has a tie-in with the feds where we allow families to transfer over their federal FAFSA over to New York State financial aid. And what we're seeing here is a snapshot of the final payment of FAFSA. We submitted at the top, it says, congratulations, you successfully submitted your FAFSA. And then underneath, there's some things that you need to read, like next steps and other things that you can do. I can't tell you how many families are guilty of not being able to read past the word congratulations without closing their window and moving on to what's next in their life. Please read this whole page because nestled underneath all those what's next is a link that I highlighted with the red arrow that says, would you like to transfer to New York State to start your state application? And what that does is you click that link and you get a pop-up window. You gotta make sure your browser allows pop-ups. And we bring you over to the great state of New York for you to file for your New York financial aid. So it's kind of a one-two punch. You're going to be able to knock out both applications in one sitting. The same way you do taxes. When you do taxes, you don't just finish at your federal form and say, okay, I'm done. You then do your state taxes. So we have the same way of doing our financial aid, the same way we do our taxes. Now, this is a state application. The state of New York doesn't take as much information as FAFSA. For example, we don't care about assets. We don't look at what you own or what bank accounts you have or anything like that. So there's not going to be any questions about assets. You look at your wages, you look at your adjusted gross income. That's probably the most key number that we're going to get when we review this. So when you file for state financial aid, it's a much simpler, clearer, easier process. Just got to remember to do it because a lot of families miss that link and then they forget to file for their state aid. You don't want to miss out on the state application because there are several programs that we give that feed off of that application. Yes, all the way back.
If you actually did the FAFSA,
Yep.
how do you go back?
So you got to give me 50 push-ups. Get a copy of your child's FAFSA. As long as you listed that they were interested in at least one New York college, where you listed their schools, we will email your child a link that says, hey, we see you did a link from FAFSA. Would you like to apply for New York aid? Here's a link. Hopefully, your son or daughter's email inbox doesn't look like my wife's inbox. She has 1,000 unread messages. She has last year's Black Friday deals still in her inbox. I don't know why. Maybe so she could hold them line. If you have it, they're great. I don't know. I might want to make sure that the deals this year are the same as last year. So yes, you gotta make sure you have that link. If you have that link, you click the link. It will lead to the same website I showed you before, and then you can follow through. You can also try to apply for state aid on our website independent of the FAFSA, but you have to give it a few days for the FAFSA to have been processed and received by us. So sometimes we get calls from families like, oh, I'm trying to apply for New York State aid, but it's saying that you don't have my FAFSA. And then we ask the student, well, did you just go to our website and find the button and you didn't link from FAFSA? And they say, yeah. We're like, well, we're not. Independently go to our website and file for state aid. Now, why is it important you file for state aid? So we have over 20 different grant and scholarship programs in New York State. These are the top 4 applied based on popularity. So the TAP program is our own standing grant program in New York. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And the second most applied programs are Excelsior scholarships. I'll also talk about that. But we do have special programs like the Enhanced Tuition Award, which helps you get support for private schools in New York, and a merit-based scholarship called the STEM Incentive for students who are interested in studying science, technology, engineering, math. We have other merit-based scholarships for teaching, social work, Now, our scholarships in New York, they have different requirements, grades that we look at, rankings that we look at. All of them are to incentivize students who have high achievement to think about entering into careers that are critical in New York State where there's a need. And obviously, the big push nowadays is STEM. So we're looking for more people who are interested in studying in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields, and working in those fields after graduation. And we want those people to be doing that here in New York. So with the STEM incentive, we do free tuition to community student. We do tuition help at private schools in New York for students who are interested in doing that. We do the same thing for teaching. We do the same thing for social work. Sometimes people call us and they're like, where's the scholarship for people who want to do finance? Unfortunately, right now, New York State doesn't have a critical shortage of people who work in finance. So Wall Street is well employed. Teaching, we need teachers, we need social work, right? So some things we have scholarships for, and other things you might not find. There's no critical shortage of lawyers. So some people call us and they're like, you know, is there a scholarship for law? New York State right now doesn't have a critical shortage of lawyers. So there's some things we need and some things that we don't need for scholarships. Before you apply for anything, any scholarship or grant, we typically ask you to file first for our TAP program, which is going to be that application that you saw before. The TAP program, we first look at your income, and we say, okay, we have this grant in New York that we've been giving out for like 40 years, and for families who make less than $80,000, $90,000 a year, you could potentially get tuition assistance from the state that can help at public or private colleges. Now, for some TAP is the thing to get from us, and that program can provide free tuition at our community and SUNY schools. So if we have students now, some of our families may so we have a voluntary program that fans for a very long time, which is free tuition at our state and city universities, but we extend the incomes up to $125,000 adjusted gross income based on whatever tax return we're looking at, you know, depending on what year your child is filing for this. So this offers the opportunity for a greater amount of New York families to potentially qualify for full tuition support at community or SUNY just by having this income or less. There's no other requirements for your student. Graduate high school, come from a family who makes this much or less based on their taxes, and you can qualify to apply for the Excelsior program, and we'll put you in free tuition at SUNY or CUNY for up to 4 years. Now, typically there's a separate application for Excelsior because there's some strings that are attached to this, and I'll talk about on the next slide. And if you're a senior parent, that's going to come out this March, or so with the Excelsior scholarship, the state offers this great opportunity, but we do look for some things in exchange. So, of course, you know, most people would be like, you know, can we work out of the kindness of our hearts, give your kid free money to go to school? And we say yes, but out of the kindness of your kid's heart, we want some things back from them. So what are those things? Well, there's 2 key points. The first thing is how do they keep their scholarship going? It's really easy to, you know, if you make $110,000 to qualify for Excelsior, but the other part is keeping it. To keep their scholarship every year, the student has to take and earn at least 30 credits per year to demonstrate that they're going to finish college within a 4-year schedule to graduate from school on time. Now, if they're in a special 5-year program, we can cover a 5th year, but for the general student, you're doing a 4-year bachelor's degree, we expect you to do it in 4 years. If you ever look at the on-time graduation rates at our city and state universities, it's nothing to brag about. You know, if we told you the students at New Dorp, only 20% of students graduated in New Dorp in 4 years, you probably wouldn't want to have sent your kid to this high school. City probably would look. Some of our colleges on-time graduation. Now, we're not talking about working adult students who have kids who are trying to get their degree on the side. We're talking about kids out of high school who are full-time students taking 5, 6, 7, 8 years to get a 4-year degree. So we're trying to refocus our students saying, look, you're an Excelsior scholar. We expect you to take the appropriate classes, get in school, get out on time, and then do whatever's next. Or grad school, enter the workforce. We want you to do that in 4 years. So if the student fails to do that in a year, they don't get their college. Now there's all circumstances, the 30 credits is the goal to keep it. Now after school, we would design the Excelsior Scholarship to be the future, the program to help the future residents of the state of California. Future residents of Florida. We don't care who lives in Florida, we don't care who lives in California. We're incentivizing New Yorkers and New York families and New York students. We ask the student, New York picked up the bill for your tuition for 4 years. We ask you to live in New York State after college for the same amount of time. Every year of free tuition, we expect a year of living in New York after. Now, if you work during that time, we also ask that the job be in New York because it doesn't help the New York economy. You live in New York, but you work in Jersey. That helps Jersey, doesn't help New York. Helps New York a little bit, helps Jersey a little bit better. So we ask that the job be in New York. We're not asking you to do anything specific. Some students may want to continue their education. You know, they may want to go to law school. They go to law school in New York, we'll count the time working on their law degree at New York school that's living in New York. If they don't know what they want to do, if you take 6 months to Netflix and chill, they're watching the Bird Box, you know, they're on Netflix all day, like they do something. For us, if the couch that they're laying on is in New York State, they're meeting the live in New York requirement for the Excelsior Scholarship. So you get the point. We don't have any specific requirements to the student other than after school live in New York. Maybe they, you know, they find their jobs, live here, and benefits the state that all talented young people agrees living and working. That's the change. If it's obligation, we could ask for a portion of the scholarship to be repaid to us. We don't charge any penalties or any loan or any interest or anything like that. But we would ask for whatever they didn't qualify to keep because they didn't stay the full time to be returned to the state. We could continue to pay it back. So because of these special agreements, there is a separate application for Excelsior, and students are brought through this, and they're expected to agree to this as part of the terms and conditions for taking scholarship. So we do want you to be aware of the details of our programs. This is our website. You go to our landing page now. We have the application for Excelsior. You can see what it's like. It's for students who are currently in school. As I mentioned before, if you're a senior parent, you have to wait until March to apply for the next school year. But you can pretty much see the requirements, things that we ask. We call it terms of service agreement, and make sure that you're aware of that before you say, hey, take a free tuition from New York. You know all of the details that come with that free tuition. What about your colleges? So let's say you want to go to a private school, you need more money. Let's say your dream school is out of New York, maybe it's in Florida, maybe it's in California. Well, you really would depend on the college to help pick up the tab. And you want to make sure that you're fully aware of those colleges' financial aid opportunities, especially when it comes to whether they have need or merit-based aid. Some of our colleges in this country have a vast amount of financial aid money that they provide their students. There's schools that, they look at families' income, they say, look, don't worry about it, we'll pick up the whole tab. They provide full grants and scholarships. There's schools that financial aid makes a promise of zero loans. Your kid goes to a certain school, they'll give you financial aid without any loans, so that they can graduate debt-free. And then there are other schools, you look at their financial aid, and you really don't get much information. It's a little bit more obscure. Like, they wrote some stuff, just apply with us to let you know. No two schools are the same, but the work of the family is to make sure that you're doing this research, right? Does the school offer merit-based scholarships based on your kid's achievement, the students' level of grades or test scores? If it's a need-based program, some schools are really interested in helping families based on finances. They may ask for a separate application called the CSS profile. Now, not every school asks for this form, but if you are looking at a private college that does require it, you want to be familiar with it because it is a monster of a financial aid application. If you were thinking, if you were nodding along during my talk of FAFSA, I put you in a coma if I talked about the CSS profile. This form, it collects a lot of detailed information that FAFSA didn't require. It looks at different levels of income and asset information that wasn't present on FAFSA. It asks about non-custodial parents and their income. Typically, what are the schools that ask for this? Well, the schools that are the popular name private schools. I ask seniors all the time, or juniors, like, what colleges are you looking to apply to next year? If somebody says Syracuse, Syracuse is a profile school. In order to get financial aid in Syracuse, you got to survive this application. NYU, the new school, Fordham, Cornell, Columbia, Vassar, University schools, popular private schools out of the state, they probably also require a CSS profile. We're talking about Georgetown, Boston College, Boston U, Notre Dame. Schools like that are all CSS required schools. These schools have a lot of money to give, but they want to make sure that they fully vet the family before they give that money, and so they use the CSS profile to do that vetting. Is when you application charge you a fee. The CSS profile is run by the College Board. Sometimes you have to pay for the SAT. If you have to pay for the SAT, you might have to pay for this. They charge a $25 initial application fee if you need to do it for one school, and then a $16 reporting fee for each additional college that you need to send beyond that. So the folks at the College Board, they make their money. Now, for some of our students, if you get fee waivers and things like that, you would be granted a fee waiver for the CSS profile. If you get the SAT fee waiver, they automatically give you a fee waiver for the CSS. They also have to look at your income within the CSS, and they could also waive the fee. So when you're looking at a college, I always ask seniors, what are schools you're up in, or upcoming seniors, what are your schools you want to apply to? I ask them, did you look at the school's net price calculator? So what's that? Well, I kind of compare this to car insurance companies, For those of you who drive, you don't just pick Geico because you like those funny commercials. You pick them because and how do you know Geico gives you a good rate versus Progressive or Allstate? You get quotes, right? You go to each insurance company, you get a quote, which information they say this is how much you're going to charge you for whatever, 6 months or a year. Colleges actually have a similar way of getting financial aid quotes. You go to school's websites, you can look for a link that says net price calculator. You can punch in your family income, answer questions about your child's grades or test scores, whatever they need, and they'll actually give you an estimated financial aid package that'll show you what the potential costs of your school would be after financial aid has been factored in. Now, this is an important point to make. I have a lot of families, they get worried about, private schools cost too much money. You might be one of these families where the college talk with your kid, like I have my mom, she said, QE, don't give me any of the names of schools. And I was like, great, Mom, I'm going to move forward with that advice because I have 5 colleges. It only happened to QE, right? Schools, when you look at college, there's 2 costs. There's the price that you get on the website. Like, this is on try to go ahead and mine. You look at NYU's website, if you live on campus, it's $75,000. Some parents up reflex, like, no way. But the price that families individually pay, we call that the net price. That's the price of the college after financial aid has been applied, and after they've given you grants and scholarships. There's some students whose price to go to NYU is 0. They pay nothing. They get grants, get scholarships, they get supported by the financial aid program, and their parents don't pay anything to send them. Parents, if you ever want to say to a student, well, you can't go to that school because it's too expensive, you won't know that bottom line price until you get the final financial aid decision from that college. But in the interim, you can actually get quotes or estimates from them that will give you some idea if it's a college worth looking at. So, if you want to make that case to a student, like, I think the school's going to be too much, make that case based on doing an estimate. Like, put your numbers in there, see what they're saying. Maybe you'd be surprised. The school looks like it could potentially be affordable. There are plenty of private schools that can beat SUNY and CUNY on price if your child is able to get in there due to the nature of their programs. So we always just want to, keep our options open and not limit ourselves to CUNY's only. Because if you go by CUNY and SUNY only, you can get the same financial aid packages. CUNY and SUNY schools get $8. If you qualify for federal or state financial aid programs, you get no financial aid pretty much. You're going to pay CUNY and SUNY. But at private schools, there's a little bit more stuff that goes on in the background, and it could be as affordable or as equal to a state or city school, depending on that school's financial aid. The last thing I want to make sure that I leave you with as a takeaway are the private scholarship programs. I mentioned Google for Google. Second grader draws this little picture of dinosaurs, gets $30 grand for college. It's a nice story, true story. There are many of these scholarships that are out there. Students showed me, the student focuses into creative writing. Found this like poetry scholarship contest. They do like $1,500 to $5,000 scholarships based on poems that you write. The theme this past year was like write a poem about someone you love. And I was joking with the student, I'm like, I don't know any of you in the room, but I write a poem about how much I love you for 5 grand. Really easy. So the reason why we bring these up and we bring up Google is because sometimes we hear a lot of excuses when it comes to scholarships. Like, students will tell us they require essays. I gotta write something. Well, yeah, you gotta write something. You gotta know your name. You gotta write your name on the application. You gotta do some work to do some of these scholarships. Higher level programs, they have a lengthy application process, but they give good money at the end. Another true story for you is a student was featured in Time Money magazine, where the student did 100 different scholarships from the beginning of high school to her senior year. She applied to 100 different programs. Guess how much her family pays for her college now that she's in school? 0. She didn't win 100 scholarships, but she gave herself a good chance to by applying for different programs to get a few of these, and they stack up, and it helps her pay the bill. So this is something that you are continuously. Your junior parents start looking now, and then you have the next senior year. A lot of local neighborhood-based, sometimes it's based out of libraries, or for people who live in the New Dorp community, or Great Hills, or different parts of Staten Island. I live in Queens. I have a neighborhood-based scholarship in my neighborhood. The first year we started the program, we had it in the Queens Library branch in my neighborhood. We only had 4 applications. We had 4 winners, because those were the only people that applied, because it was a really local program. There are websites that help you find big national programs, but also we like to look locally. Look at your employer. One thing that I got, my mom, she's a nurse here in New York, and when I was in college, she was in the 1199 Seattle Healthcare Workers Union. She filled out for, I didn't know about it. She looked at that, she could look at it. So, look at your affiliations, give this a good look, because this could be an X factor for you. This could be some additional money that can help close the gap and make it more affordable for you to be able to send your child to college without having to go into debt or go into your college. Now, just watch out for scams as it relates to financial aid, because when you're looking for scholarship, your kid is online. I joke about this, but I had a kid once that showed me a scholarship on Craigslist. Craigslist is not a place for you to find scholarships. Some dude come to my house dressed in red, I'll give you $5,000 for college. We may not see you again if you do something like that. So, make sure it's reputable. Be careful of identity theft. Make sure that you're not giving information to fake organizations, fake companies, or profit organizations. So, to close the overview, of course, start doing your search for private scholarships now. I mentioned 2nd grade Google, and you can start. During this, you approach senior year, use the net price calculator, build a really good college list of schools that are not only have programs you're interested in, but also the affordability that you're looking for through their financial aid programs. Also, attend those schools if they're local or they're within reach to go to their open houses and attend their financial aid lectures. They're great times to hear about schools' financial aid programs, and also to network with the financial aid staff. A relationship that you'd like to build. I do all my things to be this job and their kids are in college. They're going to school that I don't know how to pay to build. I don't even know how to pay my mortgage next week. We're helping those families when they come to us with these situations. And that's a relationship that starts when you're just inquiring about school, when you're just applying for admission. You can start building that relationship and knowing who your financial aid counselor is at the school and working with that person to make any changes. Also, the big important point is make sure that parents, that you're open with your child about their finances as it relates to college affordability. So, we always give students, they work hard in high school and, they get into the college of their dreams, but only to get that financial aid letter, you're not getting enough support and you can't afford to send them there. And there's no tougher thing for a parent to be able to say to their kid, work hard to get into that college. Sorry, you can't go there because I can't afford it. You you should be on the same page going into the college application process. Let your child know this school is a stretch. You know, if you get in there and they don't give you enough aid, that school might not be a school that you can go to next year. But be happy with your choices. You know, have college A be a top choice, college B be a top choice. Have, you know, option C is a top choice. That way, if the student doesn't get into option A, they're happy to go to B or C if the money is there at those schools. We sometimes see some students invest themselves in one particular college. They don't get into that school, their parents can't afford to send them to that school, and they're unhappy and colleges because they're miserable going to DNCC. They didn't want to go to CSI, they didn't want to go to Broman Community College to start school, and then they fail, they drop out. So we want to make sure that they have options that they're happy with, and it usually starts with an open conversation about finances. I remember the conversation I had with my mom about finances. Every time I said, "Mom, what can we afford to college?" she said, "Don't ask." And that was great advice for me going into the college process. You didn't know what kind of schools that you can afford to send them to. So we want to make sure that this is a good opportunity to work with the student as a team and hopefully find a college that you can afford. So we're going to open up a Q&A. This is my agency contact information. We can chat on our website, so our website is up there. If you ever have questions about specific programs with us, if you ever see Michael pop up in the chat box, that's usually me. I'm the only other Michael that's on the chat, so maybe sometimes we get me on the chat. But we do have our call center. We get a little busy during peak times, which are before the semester starts. So before the fall semester starts, we're busy. Right now, before the spring semester starting, we're busy. But anytime during the semester is a little bit more quiet, during the summer is a little bit more quiet. So there's better times for you to call us if you want to call us on the phone, but I always recommend chat if you have general questions. So go ahead, yes. Yep. So when we talk about students' accounts, right? The first thing that I usually ask, I'm not going to ask you to do the answer, but how much is in the account, right? If you tell me, she's got like $1,000 in her own bank accounts, then I'm like, we're not crying over $1,000 in bank accounts. Now, if you tell me I have $10,000 in my bank account or $100,000 in my kid's bank account, that could have a big negative impact on financial aid. The way they look at this is, the way the colleges and the FAFSA, remember, New York, we don't look at accounts. So for Excelsior, those programs, we're just looking at your income. 20% of the student's money to be used to pay for college. So if a student has 10 grand in their bank account, to a college, you're $2,000 less eligible for financial aid as soon as they know about that. So it's better for students in this process when they're reaching senior year and they're about to do FAFSA to be as broke as possible in terms of their money, right? Now, if they have a little part-time job, they have $1,000 in their bank account, that's fine. But if they have significant assets, at parents that sometimes they shelter their assets in their kids' names, and it really has a big bite on the financial aid eligibility. You know, if you're dumping money, you know, using good tax provisions through your kids' savings, and now all of a sudden you're filing for aid, they're going to, you know, dig you for financial aid now because of all that money that your kids holding on to. So just be mindful of that. They shouldn't. Now, if you have time, try to recoup some of that money. You know, transfer it back into a parent's name. It's better for students to have it held in a retirement asset if there's really money you intend for them, so they can start like a custodial IRA. There's different strategies that you can undertake. For anyone who has similar questions, because they usually get like at least 10 or 20 of these questions related to assets, just Google, you know, asset management strategies for financial aid. Asset management strategies for financial aid. You'll see Forbes articles, Wall Street Journal, you have that subscription, but New York Times blog posts. It's been written about ad nauseum about how to manage your assets to put you in a better place for financial aid. And I just recommend doing some research, you know, reading some of these blogs and reputable organizations like Forbes, where you'll get advice about how to shift assets, where the money should be, where it shouldn't be, and to get an advantage, or at least not get dinged in this process. So yeah, there's plenty written about that you can find online. So yeah, do that for you. Other questions? In the back, go ahead.
Yes, it qualifies for the Excelsior Scholar. If you get that, if you're qualifying for STEM.
So both programs do the same thing. Excelsior gives you full CUNY student tuition. STEM gives you full CUNY student tuition. we're going to ask you which one do you want. So because they're both paying the same amount of money, we don't let you stack both of them to like go towards other stuff. So you can get one or the other. So we would tell you to take Excelsior because Excelsior has friendlier in-school pools with on-time graduation. STEM has a GPA requirement. It has to not only take credits, but get a grade on average. Where Excelsior grades, you just want to do your passion classes. So Excelsior is the lesser of the two evils. So we would advise you to take Excelsior. But it's your choice. You can't get both because they both pay the same amount of money and you can't stack them together. We won't give you two free tuition. Other questions? Yes. Sure. So, like I said, Access VR is something that you want to look into. It's a state agency in New York that provides, there's a stream of funding that we provide families for whatever's next after high school, whether that be work, trade, vocational, or higher education. The other thing that we do is we allow flexibility. We open up flexibility in our programs. If we have a student with autism who wants to go to college under the Excelsior Scholarship, for example, that student may not be able to thrive with a full course load with 30 credits. So we actually allow flexibility for them to take and attempt whatever they feel like they can, whether it be one class per semester. The only thing we require for Excelsior is that whatever they try, they have to pass. So if they want to take one class, as long as they get a passing grade, they can keep getting their Excelsior. As long as it takes them to finish college, whether it be 4 years or 8 years, we just want them to succeed and we allow that flexibility. But you also have that access to the VR money, which gives you an additional stream of funding if there are other supports that you need for that specific. So yeah, there are things there. You also want to talk to the college. Colleges have accessibility offices of students with disabilities. They want to be aware of these things. They can offer additional supports as well. If your child has an IEP, it doesn't transfer to college the same way it's been transferred from pre-K all the way to now. So it's a different process with colleges that you'll have to discover for yourself when you're enrolling your child, letting them know about their specific disability. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. So there is an annual cap and a lifetime cap. The annual cap is limited for the student's grade in college. So if they're a first-year freshman, the typical maximum federal loan is $5,500. So the government knows that there's risk with their loans because they don't check students' credit. They know students don't have credit, so why bother checking it? So it's an unsecured loan, and they're basically only allowing them to borrow in their first years to limited amount of $5,500. As the student college year, that cap increases, potentially up to $10,500 by the time you reach senior year. They can borrow more. So for a first-year freshman, if you need, let's say, $10,000 to pay at college, well, they can borrow about half of that, but they may need parents to step in and support the remaining amount. The federal government offers what's called a PLUS loan, which is a parent option. It's called PLUS Plus. That would be an optional loan for parents to take out if they didn't have cash if they want to let their child pay for school. But parents do have to pass a credit check in order to get that parent loan. They're not checking your debt to income or your FICO score. They're just making sure that you don't have any adverse history, like you're currently in collections or there's a lien against you or anything like that. Other questions? I'll hear Stan ask it. Go ahead. Sure, so there is, child support pay is an easy one. There is an offset when they ask about your additional income resources. There'll be a line for child support received, and then there's a line for child support being paid. So if you have somebody like you're remarried and you have somebody paying child support out to kids from a previous marriage, they will allow that to be deducted from the total wages and income that you report. So yeah, there will be an offset for that. Number of kids in college is factored in when they profile your family situation. If you report having more than one child in college in the upcoming school year, the FAFSA is actually designed to divide whatever income and assets you report between the number of kids going to college. So if you make $100K and you say I have 2 kids going to college next year, they'll say, no, you make $50,000 per kid. So it gives you more eligibility. So they do have that considered. The state, we allow an adjustment for some, but not all of our programs. For the TAP program, there's an adjustment for more than one kid in college. For the Excelsior program, there is not. So with the Excelsior program, you can't make 250 and say, oh, I have 2 kids going to college, and we bring in 125. That household has to make 125 to get into the program, no matter how many kids are going to college. But for our TAP program, there is some leeway to adjustment. It's not the same as FAFSA, but there is an adjustment for having more than one kid in college. Sometimes we get this question in the form of expenses. Families will ask us, well, do they consider loans that a parent is taking out to pay for other kids' college, or other debts that parents are dealing with, or expenses like mortgages and things like that? You notice when I ran you through FAFSA, we didn't talk about expenses because FAFSA doesn't collect any information about expenses. So they don't, ask how much debt you currently have for other kids in college. They don't ask about your bills or what your family budget is like. It's a general assessment. Now, some things are factored in. They do factor in if you live in New York State with high cost of living. They do factor in large household size. If you have a lot of, kids, you have a lot of mouths to feed. There are things that are factored in there, but they do not specifically go into your individual expenses. Private schools, though, with that CSS profile I mentioned earlier, they actually do look at expenses. So when you're looking at a private school, the reason why some schools do a better assessment of families is because when you do the CSS profile, they do ask you, do you have other loans for kids in college? They do ask you if you have a special needs child and you're paying for out-of-pocket medical expenses or other expenses not being covered by insurance. They do ask you about mortgage bills and debt. So there will be an opportunity for them to see not the other side of your finances, not only what you make, but how you spend your money. So you will get a better evaluation from a school that uses this than you do with FAFSA. FAFSA's evaluation is a little bit more harsh in terms of just looking at your income, doing a little bit of adjustments, but not fully considering your full financial situation. So check their website, or if you go to the CSS profile, just Google CSS profile. On this page, if you scroll down, it says a list of schools that acquire or participating colleges, something of that nature. There's an A to Z list of all the schools across the country that ask for it. Just go to the highlighter, see if your kid's doing any of those schools, and then you have to go and go through this process. Yeah, but typically, like I said, those popular private schools tend to be, ones that ask for this. Yes. Yeah. Sure. So 529s are considered an investment that's viewable on FAFSA. They want it to be reported. It's always to be reported as a parental asset, not a student asset. Even if it's a custodial 529, where the student is both the account owner and the beneficiary. So when you make a 529, you have the account owner and you have the beneficiary. Traditionally, parents are the account owners and their child is the beneficiary. We always typically count 529s as a parental-owned asset. The reason why we do this is to protect the money. When we look at parent assets, they don't go after it as aggressively as they do student-owned assets. Remember, I said 20% of your kids' money, they're going to say they can use to pay for college. For parents, there's a deduction of their assets, and then they take 5.65% of the remaining value after they receive the deduction of what you report. So they take a slice of a parent asset. So the 529, I was going to lose with a parent the other day. For $100,000 in 529s, it's like $3,000 less eligible for financial aid because of how, the less aggressive treatment of that money. If the kid had $100,000, it'd be $20K less eligible for financial aid. So it's a remarkable difference. So always report it as a parent investment. And remember, New York State does not look at assets. So the 529 has no bearing on Excelsior or scholarships or anything like that. Other questions? Yes.
So if you have some children and I have twins, so they both try to go to New York City. Can I fill out one application?
Yeah, you have to set up applications, but the good news is that the FAFSA, if you read past the working regulations, on that confirmation page, they have a transfer button that says, do you have a sibling who also needs to file FAFSA? So pick whichever of your twins you want to start with first, and then copy that one to the next one, and you don't start with it. But you do have to do 2 separate FAFSAs, 2 separate state applications. If they do Excelsior, 2 separate Excelsiors, because they're each individual students, they may not go to the same school, so they have to each have their own applications. But you get the benefit for FAFSA, at least you get that to in college, right? Get that adjustment right away, so you may get some federal aid where you weren't expecting to, depending on what your family is. Any other questions? Yes? Different households. So if the parent claims that sibling, that's that sibling, then yes, they can claim them as numbered in college. Because they're saying that they're the ones that financially support that person most of the year. If the other parent claims that student, then you can't claim them as number in college because that other parent is saying, well, no, I'm the one providing for that kid most of the time. So we look at whether or not those siblings who don't live at home, whether or not they're being claimed on that parent's tax return. So you, your spouse's tax return, are they on there or are they on the other parent's tax return? That's going to have a bearing on whether they can claim as number in college. The only exception we do for that is if by court order, like there was a divorce decree where the other parent is mandated to pay all of the, or the majority of the college expenses. So if you have a divorce decree that says, dad, who you're married to, is responsible for 80% of the college costs, even if mom claims that kid, dad can make a case I have to in college because I'm paying the majority of that kid's college costs per the court order. So you could then make a case for adding to the college by court order. So those would be the two scenarios, plain or decree. Any other questions? Yes. So Pell Grants come from FAFSA, right? So in order to qualify for a Pell Grant, you can actually see if you qualify for a Pell Grant when you do that FAFSA forecasting thing I was showing you. So if you go onto the FAFSA website tonight and punch in your income, do this early aid estimate business. When you submit the FAFSA or do the estimate, the FAFSA actually produces the Pell Grant. So it tells you do you qualify or not and how much. The Pell Grant is potentially up to $6,095, but in order to qualify, they look at the family contribution. So this number that FAFSA gives you, we think you could pay this for college. If that number is higher than the Pell Grant, you don't get a Pell Grant. So it's tied to the EFC called the family contribution. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes? That's a wonderful question. So what if things change? So if you're a junior parent, you're planning on using 2018's taxes to file for financial aid coming school year when you can go to college in 2020. You can notify the financial aid office of any significant changes. Now, the forms are black and white. They're going to say, what was your 2018 adjusted gross income? You have to take that from your taxes and report it black and white. But behind the scenes, after you file for aid, you draft the letter, get a copy it for each financial aid office, and you're going to provide supporting documentation and say, our income is different because of whatever. We lost a job. Federal employees that got furloughed for the first month of the year, sometimes in your 2018 taxes, you have to include a one-time income distribution. We have families whose incomes got blown up because someone passed away and left your family some money. Or you sold some assets, you sold a stock, and you exercised an option and it showed in your income. Or some parents, because of a financial emergency, had to take some money out of a retirement account, and it shows as a distribution on your income. All of these things can be addressed by the financial aid office. They can remove those blips in income, or they can readjust your income outlook based on what you're going to be making now going forward. So if someone lost a job and all you're getting is unemployment, they can base it on what your unemployment is going to be for the next 12 months or however long, instead of looking at your old income. They have the ability to override it. You have to go through them to make a change. You can't go into FAFSA and say, my income should be zero, I don't have a job. You can only put where your taxes say. Yeah, but then the financial aid office will work. And in any kind of situation, you notify them and they'll tell you what your options are. That's a great question. Any other questions? And we do the same thing in New York, like families get divorced, they were married last year, file taxes married, we gotta take out a non-custodial parent's income. Someone gets hurt at the job, they go on disability, we go and change the income for them, the things that we do in New York State as well. It's not as broad as the colleges, but we do have some options that we can do in New York to make adjustments to income based on, life circumstances, things that happen. Well, yes. Sure, two part. Yes. Mhm. Is that the first part of the question? Okay, you want me to take the first part, or you the second part? Okay, so independent status, and I love this question, I usually get this question in every financial. Doing these financial presentations is like Groundhog Day for me, I'm like, when am I gonna get that question? The student has very strict rules about who can be an independent student and who's required to be filed under their parents. They don't give a hoot about how they're paying off taxes. So the rule is, if for an independent student, they have to be 24 years old or older to be automatically independent. So if you have a 25-year-old who's not doing anything, now you want to go to college, you don't have to file financial aid for them. But if you have an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, they can only file independence if they have a special circumstance that shows that they have a broken household situation. So for example, you beat the hell out of your kid, the cops come take your kid away from you, you know, your kid becomes an orphan. There's like a set of circumstances where they can make your kid independent. They do not allow parents to just simply say, oh, I don't claim or I don't support that student, and then the student's independent because we would go for that. When my kids become 17, 18, I'd be like, oh, just, you know, I'm not gonna claim you on my taxes anymore. So they don't allow for that. They have to actually see a higher level circumstance. These things have to go to the high school. So Ms. Clark has to look at this. There's things that the DOE may have to sign off on for us to make that approval. That a student is independent. Like I say, we reserve that for the rarest of circumstances. So it's not a thing that you can just arbitrarily declare. So claim your kid, I want you to get a better tax deal. It's not going to help you at all. And other than paying more taxes if you don't claim you're independent. Yeah. Sure. Yes. Sure. So you won't have to, because if what you're referring to is Social Security payments, the government doesn't expect you to use Social Security money to pay for college. Therefore, they don't about it unless it's on your taxes. So if you and your spouse file married person's taxes, his taxable portion of Social Security shows up in your income. That'll be reported on FAFSA. If your child doesn't work and doesn't have an income in addition to Social Security, she doesn't do taxes, her Social Security is invisible. It's not going to show up anywhere on the form, so you don't have to explain it away like, oh, that stops, because you're not going to be reporting it anymore. So you won't have to worry about that. Only what's on your taxes that's included in your AGI is what's being viewed as Social Security, benefits that you're getting as a bank. And hers is not going to be on your taxes. That's a good question too. Any other questions? If not, have a lovely evening, get home safe, and I'll stick around a little bit at the front if you want to ask me any comments.